Now, one of the fantastic things about exercise is it actually helps to reduce our general heart rate. It lowers what's referred to as our resting heart rate. And what this means is that we generally feel less anxious because when that heart rate starts to increase, we then start to feel that nervousness because you're really aware all of a sudden of that heartbeat and that heart rate increasing, and then that shortness of breath that often presents with it. By reducing our resting heart rate as well, we're almost kind of like almost keeping something in reserve in a way. By reducing our resting heart rate, we will generally feel more at ease. A lower resting heart rate also what helps us with sleep. We'll find that we'll sleep deeper. We'll find it easier to get to sleep. When we do exercise, all of a sudden we find we can push ourselves a little bit harder for a little bit longer. And so there's this real snowball effect with, I said, exercising, then reducing our heart rate, feeling more at ease, feeling happier within ourselves, and that can really, really build on some really strong positive habits that lead towards long-term, sustainable, increased wellness.
Now, it might seem quite counterintuitive to actually schedule in time to worry within your day. And I have actually used this technique quite a few times. And it's something that I worked with a therapist when I was experiencing some quite bad OCD after the birth of my child. And I was initially very skeptical. But actually, we timetable almost everything else into our day. I can imagine most of you have pretty blocked out calendars. You know, everything's in there. We pretty much have to block out, you know, lunch. If you want to pop for that coffee, if it's not in there, someone's going to whack a meeting in and you're committed. So why not schedule that time to actually worry and explore your thoughts? Now, there's a few parameters to this. Make sure it's not more than 20 minutes. So put a timer on your phone, set an alarm, and don't let yourself get carried away. You know, it doesn't have to be 20 minutes, but make sure you set a maximum. And ideally find the same time every day, and find a time of day that is ideally where you're not going to be disrupted. I wouldn't recommend just before you go to bed, because that's not a great time to start sort of thinking about everything that you're worrying about. But whether it's, you know, on the train on your commute home, on the train, you know, on your way into work, you know, that 20-minute stroll you manage to grab at lunchtime, whenever it is. If you're like me and have children, you can go and lock yourself in the bathroom, put some headphones in while everyone's banging on the door, trying to get your attention, whatever works for you. And the sort of theory behind this is if I say to you now, you know, don't think about pink elephants. I can imagine pink elephants have gone in your head now. You're thinking about pink elephants because I've said it, even though I'm telling you don't think about it. Telling yourself not to worry about something that you are worried about does not work from a physiological point of view, because when we're stressed, and the stress and anxiety response are essentially the same physiological response, the parts of your brain within the limbic system, which are responsible for stress and anxiety, focus you in on what they perceive as the threat. So it's not that you can't forget about it. It's actually that your body on a physiological level is not letting you forget about it. Because again, back thousands of years ago, when our threats were, you know, woolly mammoths or warring tribes coming in to steal your food, you needed to be attuned to that environment. Sadly, the threats that we perceive now, you know, that big meeting, that promotion interview, paying the mortgage next month, those things aren't going to come and attack you in the middle of the night, but your brain doesn't know that. So you're constantly on the lookout for those dangers. So telling yourself not to worry doesn't work. But what you can do is get into the habit of thinking, no, I'm going to jot that down, but I'm going to worry about it at 5 o'clock during my allotted time to worry. And what I like to do during this time is to divide my worries up into 3 columns, like I've put on the slide there. Those small things that you can do something about. So particularly if we are quite overwhelmed, and this is very useful if you are going through quite a busy period. So break it down. All those little niggly things that can become quite stressful and contribute to anxiety. So whether it's, oh, I need to, return that item, I need to get back to, that person on an email, I need, all those little things, but you can actually do something about it. Then those bigger worries. I need to submit my tax return. I need to have my one-to-one with my manager. I need to look at, remortgaging, whatever it is, those big kind of life things that are, again, you can do something about. And then all the things you worry about, those big what ifs, those hypotheticals that you actually have no control over, but that often, when you're awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, pop into your head and can cause you to sort of catastrophize and think, oh gosh, what if that happens? What if, I don't know, we all have them. Put them down. The purpose then is you can look at those smaller worries and think, are these actually worth worrying about? Am I just taking on too much here? Can I just, either delegate them to someone else? Can I forget about them? Or shall I just quickly after this half an hour and just tick a few things off my list? You can then look at the bigger worries and think, right, okay, let's make a plan for those. Let's feel a bit better about it. But most importantly is the third column, because recognizing that we can't control everything is really important. We don't have to have a plan for everything, and we have to have an element of acceptance of the situation, of that, that life, we don't have a crystal ball. So we need to be comfortable with that. And we can also actually then do a bit of exploration. Why am I worrying about this? Has somebody said something? Is it because I'm just feeling stressed? Is it because of something else? Have I got something going on at home, or has somebody said something? And then you can kind of break it down and work backwards and try and find a bit of an answer, or just accept it. And actually just the power of seeing it written down and looking at it, can really help alleviate that worry. So we want to be doing that every day. It doesn't have to be the full time either. You can just sit there for, even if you sit there for a minute and think, actually, I've had a really great day today. I haven't worried about anything. Great. But then you know that tomorrow you've got that time there available. And also think about afterwards. What are you going to do in the 10, 20, 50, half an hour after that time to then make you feel good? If you have become a bit stressed out, if in that 20 minutes you have looked at things and gosh, actually, this is giving me a lot of anxiety. I've written it down. I've come up with a plan, but it stressed me out. Have you then got time to go for a walk? See someone, have a phone call, read a book for 10 minutes, whatever it is. So have that little plan within your day. And again, I was very skeptical about this.
Nutrition and anxiety, we typically look at things like spiking blood sugar, which I'll go to more in a bit later on. Spiking our blood sugar, and those real big highs, and then the crash we experience afterwards, which when we get low blood sugar can lead to anxiety and panic attacks. But there's one really large area of anxiety around nutrition is actually the worry about food. For example, worrying, is this healthy for me? Is this good for me? Should I be eating this? Should I not? And then tying morality with what we eat, which is really quite damaging to ourselves, especially mentally, because when we think of ourselves as good because we ate lots of boring food that we didn't really enjoy, and then having a pizza with friends is seen, oh, we were bad, and that was a bad thing to do. And then the guilt that's tied in with that can lead to a lot of anxiety around food and what we eat. There's also a real issue with the perception of what we eat and how that makes us as individuals look. A really common thing is that if I ever bump into someone from my gym in a supermarket, a really common thing they'll do is hide their basket because they're worried that I, as a personal trainer, will judge them based on the foods that they have in their baskets. And it's like I said, unfortunately something that people do worry about because it's a reflection. They feel that unless they've got a basket full of vegetables and fruits, that they're somehow not being good. And I really want to push home the message that food has no morals. Food is not good or bad. Chocolate is not good or bad. Vegetables are not good or bad. What we have there, again, I like to, this is why I like to break food down into things such, like I said, they're tools and they're things that we need to use in order to basically feed ourselves and fuel ourselves and keep ourselves going.